On the show today, Marcela Widrig. So Marcela has been involved with the conference for a little while, had very good things about her from the 2018 conference. She's an embodied facilitator of trauma, background in the Grinberg Method, Embodied Flow, all kinds of other things we're going to talk about, no doubt. Marcela, you're super welcome.
Thank you, Mark. I'm happy to be here.
Where are you in the world today?
Los Angeles.
LA, and is that your home?
Now it is, yeah. You know, I moved back to the States from Bali kind of officially at the beginning of the year. So
okay, all right. I'm curious about that, but let's start with a little bit about your history. How did you get interested in the body, embodiment, trauma, and all this stuff you're involved with now?
Wow, you know, kind of by chance, really, effectively by chance, right? I say that. My dearest friend at the time in Barcelona, I was living there, was doing this bodywork thing, and it was the most remote thing from my awareness at that time. And this was back in the 90s. So you can imagine, mid 90s. And I was her guinea pig. So every Friday she needed a body to practice on. And I would tromp over in an exhausted state from having held back my rage and my shame and my humiliation.
I need to talk about there, I think, Marcela.
You know, and I would show up on her table, and initially I would just fall sound asleep. I was really like the least attentive client ever. And then I went to a workshop, really basic, it was a 3-day workshop, but actually nothing with the Grinberg Method at the time was basic. That's a very intense methodology. And I remember the distinct moment where some learned behavior of mine all of a sudden became separate from me. And how I felt about myself in that moment. Like there was something there. First of all, there was much less criticism about myself, right? And there was this like memory, there was a remembrance of, oh yeah, I know this state of being. I just don't spend much time here. And so then I started more personal work than anything. And then a couple years into it, I thought, okay, well, can I do this? You know, can I do this work? And that was in 1997. And I never looked back. Yeah.
So we've had a couple of people on that have done the Grimberg Method, my friend Adi from Israel, for example. But can you say briefly what that is? Because it's not known in a lot of circles.
No, it's not known. I guess it's an approach to life, and it's basically teaching you through your body how to undo learned behavior. And in the unlearning, discovering what's there. And so there's a lot of different options that they teach through touch, they teach through workshops, through physical trainings, through movement. And look, it was a phenomenal training as a base, but then I reached a point where in order for me to express my talents and my own being through my work, I had to like absolutely disaffiliate with them, because that was a kind of methodology that had grown into, it had become a very rigid structure, almost like a belief system. And so
I've heard some bad things from a few people, and not necessarily even about the method, but and definitely know some good people working within that system who are still within it, and quite a few good ones who have left. And by the sounds of things, you know, if I hear something from 1 or 2 people, I think it's gossip. But when I hear it from 5 or 10 who I respect and trust, who are very different people, I go, okay, so something's up. So maybe that's enough to say there. What else was a major influence on you in terms of sort of other systems, other things, other practices?
Well, I mean, I've practiced yoga for, almost equally as long. And that was mainly to get through an injury. And then also yoga started to feel very rigid to me, wait a minute, what's happening here? So that I had to evolve. That's when I found Embodied Flow, and that completely opened.
My friend Tara, love to you, Tara, if you're out there listening. I sent her a text yesterday. So,
yeah. So that kind of reinvigorated my love for the body, and also helped me separate some more from the way that I was holding the Grinberg Method in my body. And So I would say those are pretty huge influencers, but I just think I'm fascinated by human behavior. I never stop being fascinated by humans' capacity to learn.
Nice.
And,
Nice.
yeah.
Okay. And, what about right now? Is there something you're particularly interested in right now? Learning edge, something that's really just juicy for you now?
I've been doing this, a couple of things on this, the like private learning. One of them is called the Celtic Wheel, where it's really looking at the Celtic holidays and systems, but it's so deeply and profoundly connected to nature. And so, and the way that our system and our talents and our creativity and like the cycles that we are actually humanly supposed to be living by and through and with, right? Like in order to start something new, to allow death to happen and to trust this dark space that you might enter into of unknown. And so it just really, initially I thought, well, I'm not Irish and that feels a little bit remote to me, but the topics they resonate deeply, and they're informing my approach to teaching and also just to processing what the hell is going on right now in this world of COVID, right?
Listen, I'm Irish, so I can give you a cultural appropriation kind of pass here, Marcela, no problem. So is it kind of seasonal? Is it like a kind of pagan seasonal kind of thing? What's the crack? Tell me a bit more.
There's the equinox that it follows, but there are there's Samhain that starts in October, and then it moves on into Bealtaine, into Imbolc, into now we're in Lugnasa, and so I'm pronouncing those, I'm sure, very incorrectly, but so it's just a rhythm, and it is a rhythm that makes a lot of sense, and it's a rhythm that you can apply to your year. It's a rhythm you can apply to your day. If I look at it, like in this COVID period, I had to let a lot of things die. And if I hadn't learned to really go through that, let's say, death process, something new couldn't happen. And I would, I'd be sucked into the mire of this period. But the other thing that I'm doing right now is, I'm sure you know this about the Rooted group that Corinne Bell has started, and I got involved in the somatic abolition group that's been
Let's
created.
talk about those groups. So Corinne Bell, obviously, of the Trauma Conference we've had on the show, and a lot of love and respect. So you want to tell us what's going on?
Well, obviously with this cultural reckoning that's pretty forceful here in the States, depending on, forceful in both directions. And so that just pulled me in a moment, and I can't really tell you why, but it was like somebody flipped on a light switch, and all of a sudden I went, what have I been doing up until now with my white body? What have I been doing, and how have I been looking at the world? And suddenly everything that I knew felt I began to question it, and it's something I haven't deeply embodied yet, and I'm still kind of stripping the layers away, but it does feel like it is going to deeply inform my work. But right now it's just informing me personally.
Okay, that's a hell of a way you put it, a cultural reckoning. I've never heard anyone put it that way before. It makes sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to summarize that in a phrase, but I'm hoping that the reckoning really happens, because we're at the very beginning.
That's a bit close to revenge, though, for my liking. When I hear the word reckoning, that normally means a bill to be paid. I mean, that's literally in German, the reckoning. It's Dutch, I think. The reckoning means like a bill, Sounds like there's a bill to be paid, or a revenge to be had, or at least a price to be paid for the sins of the father, kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess I don't really look at it that way, but maybe that's because I didn't have the right language. But I look at it more as just a really profound shakeup. And in that shakeup, a lot of what you just said could happen, right? It could. I mean, there's a lot to make amends for. But also the one thing that I'm very conscious of is, how does shame fit into this structure?
Yeah. Shame's one of your things, isn't it? And I definitely hear people in this area either shaming people or reacting out of a sort of anger, like refusal. Like for example, I refuse to be ashamed of something that I haven't done. Absolutely refuse. I refuse to pay the bill too. I absolutely refuse. So it's like, why, this, and people really respond out of a defensiveness around attempted shaming as well. So you're the shame expert, Marcela. So when I shut up and let you talk about this.
Look, I mean, there's toxic shame, there's healthy shame.
What's the difference? What's the difference?
Well, toxic shame is what you just described. Somebody feels they feel that they're being made to feel bad about themselves. Mm-hmm. They're being accused of something, let's say. Yeah. And so they react. And they react usually in a way that has to kind of right the power game that's happening. Whereas if I receive something and I'm curious about it, and I look at healthy shame as a flow that in my body that doesn't tell me I'm doing right or wrong. It reminds me that I'm human. It reminds me not to humiliate another person or to diminish another person. There's no defensiveness in that state of being. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I don't have to diminish myself. This is the other thing that I think is happening, right? In the States, I saw some things happening around this with shame that all of a sudden, white people were saying, I'm so ashamed to be white. And I think, well, that's not the point. And healthy. And then this kind of contrition, like this unnatural deferral or to others suddenly, that's not the point either. Shame is to make us more healthy. Flow of shame will make us more human and stand really clearly in who we are.
So healthy shame, isn't that acknowledging that I have done something which goes against my own values? Would you describe that as a healthy shame? Like the feeling that comes when I say, you know what, I've been doing this thing which doesn't match my values, as opposed to feeling ashamed for past generations or for something I didn't actually have responsibility for. Surely healthy shame is when I say, wow, I did this and that's not cool.
Well, then you have to look at the whole, what you've carried down in your legacy as a human, because you could have the shame of your ancestors.
Like in something that my Irish granddad did, that he killed people in World War II, and now I feel bad about it, even though it wasn't.
It's not that you feel bad about it. It's that something is retained in your body and is playing itself out today, right? So it might get triggered in very, very unrelated situations, but it's still something that if it stays stuck in place, that conflict, that like push pull that separates us from each other is still going to be happening. So I'm not so busy about checking off the boxes of, oh yes, my ancestors did A, B, C, and D. I come to my body and I think, how does that resonate in my body? And is there anything in me that is contracting and shrinking and, wanting to shy away? Okay, well then that's a place that I can go look at. So I don't care about, yes, we did that and I'm responsible for it. I care about how clean is my body holding this energy or not.
So what do we do when we experience that? So for example, I was just in Berlin and one of my grandfathers bombed Berlin. He was partially responsible as one of a bomber crew for killing probably hundreds, if not thousands of people in that town. And I have this weird feeling when I'm in Berlin, and it feels like it's not mine. And I don't have it in any other country but Germany.
Right.
Like my people killed your people. And it's really in my body when I'm there, Like what do we do when something like that comes up?
Well, how do you feel it in your body?
Sometimes I feel like inappropriate anger or fear when I hear like a German accent in a way I don't fear when I hear Swedish accent. Right. So they kind of sort of like a weird emotional response, or just like a subtle disquiet in my whole body when I'm there. Like I shouldn't be here. I'm in the enemy's place, Right. And I got a lot of friends in Berlin, so that's weird. I could, have dinner with 50 people in Berlin, but it's still there in a way in Berlin that I do not experience it in Amsterdam, which is not far, not that far away culturally. Holland versus Germany, right? Or Sweden, don't experience it. Or Russia, never had any problem there.
Yeah. So what do? You let that energy move through you. all the way up to your head. And that's the tricky part, because we're always trying to reorganize ourselves through our mind and resolve whatever our body is feeling, right? So you acknowledge, yeah, okay, so let's say for your mind, it doesn't make sense that you feel this disquiet and this dis-ease, but it's in your body. How are you going to deny it, right? It's a vibrant energy that you're aware of. So if you can just settle in, put your feet on the ground, use the tools that you have, and agree to the energy, like really agree, relax your belly, soften your jaw, let go in your neck, and soften around the eyes, which is where we hold, a lot of where we're trying to figure it out, so we'll hold effort in our eyes and our forehead. There's no figuring it out. It's there, but it has to ride its full wave, because that's the thing, you can go back and you can connect it to a specific scenario of your lineage, but so the only thing you can do is let that energy complete its run.
Mm-hmm.
And if you let that energy complete its run in your body, which can be heat, shivers, shakes, with no mitigation from your mind, and that's hard. That's where embodiment and tools come into play very strongly. Then that can shift the cultural references that you even hold, right? Like